Gakkou Gurashi was an unexpected surprise for many viewers of the 2015 summer season lineup. Having a first episode that threw your conventional setup out the window, it quickly garnered a lot of buzz in the anime community. While I entered, knowing that there was going to be zombies involved due to word of mouth, I assumed that the subject matter would have simply treated as a backdrop for cute girls to get involved in silly, tensionless slapstick with an overbearingly cutesy aesthetic, that it was sporting as my basis of assessment. I was expecting something along the lines of 2015 spring season's Reikan, where the supernatural elements were simply treated as a comedic gag rather than anything integral to the plot. And while the deceptive troll opening and most of the show's first episode runtime had me duped into believing my assumption, that premature assessment was quickly shattered with the show's ominous reveal towards the latter end of the episode. Of course, there were a few foretelling signs with the way some characters were acting and visual cues scattered throughout the episode, but I was still fooled nonetheless. With that being said, in order to get most out of this title, I highly suggest you refrain from doing any sort of research into it and simply watch it blind. So, unless you've already watched the show or simply don't care, I advise you to refrain from reading this review any further. The juxtaposition from cute girls doing cute things to zombie apocalypse is certainly an odd departure not often seen in anime. In fact, I don't recall anything going down that route at all. The closest point of comparison is magical girl shows that take a darker turn as it progresses, Maho Shoujo Madoka Magica, or shows that use sickeningly cute characters and slice-of-life moments before venturing into bone-chilling bloodbaths, Higurashi no Nako Koro ni. But as far as anything that follows directly into Gakkou's footsteps, I'm drawing blanks. At the very least, I can say it's a unique experience. While the cute girls doing cute things formula is omnipresent throughout the show, it's the moment that it skews into a more unnerving, sinister tone that really makes it stand out. Like the hunting technique practiced by the angelafish, Gurashi baits the viewer in with a warm, radiant embrace that breaks down any defensive walls that might have been set in place. You're lulled into a carefree disposition, only to have that illusion of comfort fizzle away into something much more visceral and disturbing. Gurashi's ability to toy with the viewer's response goes beyond a simple bait and switch. It's a sleight of hand trick that many storytellers are capable of executing well. While some of the tonal shifts throughout the show doesn't always transition to the best of its ability due to improper cohesion between the polar opposite elements, it still manages to keep you on your toes when shit hits the fan. Yuki Takeya, a person only tethered to sanity thanks to the willingness of her friends to walk on eggshells in her presence, is our main lead. With such a fragile mindset that's standing at the edge of rational thought, the slightest nudge could send her spiraling into madness at any given second. She throws the show's central focus, and rightfully so, as she embodies the delicate duality between escapism and harsh reality that the show presents to us. This topsy-turvy mental state was brought to life with visual cues that demanded the viewer's attention. Brightly lit hallways and classrooms teeming with jovial faces are singed away for dilapidated structures and bloodied stained walls. We're forced to commandeer Yuki's point of view, watching the murky line between her happy past life she chooses to embrace and the actual truth she rejects, slowly tearing her subconscious apart. And while Yuki's involvement broke the necessary intrigue needed to hook its audience in for more, I can't say the rest of the characters boasted the same ability. They were given episodes dedicated to fleshing out their backstory, but their personalities from beginning to end were rather one note. At best, They had the basic requirements covered to carry the narrative, but nothing noteworthy beyond that. But for everything that Gakkou Gurashi had going for it, there was a clear misunderstanding of the essentials needed to craft its content into a great show, more specifically, where to further its concept from being more than simply a novelty act. Today, we'll discuss the two major issues that prevented Gurashi from reaching the inner circles of universal critical acclaim. The first major issue that quickly became apparent by each episode was the way the show handled Yuki's mental state. When dealing with the mentally disturbed individual, proper psychoanalysis and character exploration is needed in order to make this broken person's psyche to come across as realistic to the viewer. Without it, we're simply given a gimmick that's only viable on superficial terms. With Gurashi, we see the events that trigger the mental breakdown of the character, but it's never explored beyond face value. There's no true introspection given to justify the way the character is presented, and sadly, because of this, it's reduced to only being used as a ploy for shock value and generating easy-to-consume entertainment. It may have been intended to be more than just that, but it simply wasn't genuine or detailed enough to get the point across. Since all of the characters were cookie-cutter stereotypes and no effort was placed to develop or add dimension to them, it often felt shallow. This isn't like Perfect Blue, where we get a first-person perspective into the mind of our protagonist as we experience her gradual breakdown between what is real and imaginary, playing out through the narrative and in her mannerisms. Nor is it like Evangelion, where the internal strife of characters was externalized into a visual metaphor for further inspection, while also dedicating time to fleshing them out one by one. Show, don't tell, and shock and awe was something Gurashi seemed to struggle to distinguish between, which was ultimately the reason it was kept off the pedestal with those that did do this kind of character breakdown right. Simply put, it was a case of style over substance that became painfully obvious when the gimmick of the character's mental state was recycled every episode for the entertainment instead of the thematic relevance. The second major issue was with the story itself. If viewed as a character-driven narrative, it fell short of the mark, noted by the aforementioned problems I discussed. And if viewed as a plot-driven narrative, it was a monotonous dribble that repeated the same shtick every episode. It was moe antics, followed by dark, demented slice of life on constant repeat. The reason this worked for shows like Mahou Shoujo Modica Magica and Higurashi no Nako Koro ni was because after the shift in tone, it gradually leaned and stayed in the darker territory. There was no flipping back and forth between cutesy and dark, which in turn made the conflict at hand feel more poignant. It kept moving forward to its eventual destination, and it wasn't backpedaling. This was Gurashi's fatal flaw, and ultimately what placed the final nail in its coffin. It simply spun its wheels in the mud, thinking it can depend on the same trick to carry it from beginning to end, and because of this, the show was always stuck in a state of stagnation. The only episodes that tried to break this cycle were the final ones, but by then, the damage was already done. Had Gurashi dedicated the effort necessary to make Yuki more than just a circus act for our amusement, or placed more effort into its narrative to avoid meandering in circles, it would have been on the best highlights from 2015. But like many shows with an interesting premise, Gurashi simply didn't deliver in the end. Enjoyment? 7 out of 10. While the plot twists and shock factor moments made the show a fun spectacle every now and then, I couldn't help but feel a lack of engagement. The moe aesthetic and sensationalized depiction of Yuki's damaged state stopped all chances of the serious moments of Gurashi from really having a firm grip on me. This was also the problem I had with Higurashi and Madoka Magica. Despite their more successful rendition of this kind of storytelling, they too succumbed to this trigger-happy depiction of cuteness meets sinister. It's just something I can't see beyond an entertaining party trick. And since Gurashi kept jumping back and forth between moe and dark slice of life, after a while the novelty faded away. It was enjoyable at times, but only on a surface level, and in the end left me more underwhelmed than satisfied. Overall, 5 out of 10. Gakkou Gurashi had the potential to make something that subverts the typical formula associated with the cute girls doing cute things setup, but ultimately did nothing with it. Sadly, it's yet another case of a good premise underutilized and poorly handled. The right ingredients were there, but what was served at the end of the day was a lukewarm dud. This anime was simply shit. It was moe girls living in a zombie apocalypse, and the characters surrounding the main character were idiots because they wanted to pander to this bitch and how she wasn't able to handle the fact that their world was overrun by zombies. This was a stupid anime. The fact that this review was so intricate blows my fucking mind. But I hope you guys enjoyed at the end of the day.